everyone, and welcome to the 10th episode of WONDERTALK, where I talk about my character's backstory in roleplay and in the game. On the 10th episode of the Wondrous Swtor, the actual playthrough part of the series, I had such a great time. I got to take a break and I came back to the game super refreshed, and there were so many cool things that I got to see today. I got to start the Revanite quest, where I will be sent to the Revanite camp, the worshippers of Revan, as an infiltrator, not as a worshipper. I got to learn a little more about Lord Grathan, who's a bit tied into my character's backstory. He shares the same master as my character's former master, and we got to learn more about his crazy cyborg interests. We got to do the really fun Sith spawn quest and actually got the Sith spawn codex entry. I'm so excited about that. If you want to listen to me read it in the playthrough but don't want to hear the whole thing, it's at 1 hour, 5 minutes, and 30 seconds. And we got to do the whole chaining together the Sith code in that hidden temple area. And we also ended the day by going to see the giant world boss that smushed me flat in about 3 seconds. I really like this game. On the last episode of WONDERTALK, I wanted to give Lord Shallan, Javiik's former master, a bit of a burial, I guess you could say. I wanted to finally put him to rest in terms of our talks. I'm sorry I keep bringing him up, but I find him really interesting, and I feel like he has a direct effect on Javiik's past as well as his future. So I asked you guys, at some point we wanted Lord Shallan to not be on Dromund Kaas when Javiik gets here. Not dead, but just not on Dromund Kaas. Very likely ran away for some reason. And you guys had all kinds of really cool ideas. Like I said, it should probably be related to his Sith alchemy interests. And you guys had ideas revolving around lots of old Republic era characters, and it's so fun to hear about how much you guys like the lore of this era. But I really want to be careful. I don't want to have my characters related to any major or really cool characters. Like Lord Grathan is kind of where I'm drawing the line, especially because I'm not even sure if he's still alive anymore. You guys had ideas about Lord Scourge, the Emperor, Revan, and even Darth Treya. For those of you who like Knights of the Old Republic too, that was a pretty cool reference to see. I didn't use any of those to avoid being related to a main character. And here's another really cool set of ideas from Nastia Dustia, and this is what they had to say of what Javiik's master could have found. Javiik's master was working on giving people the Force. Like Javiik was a non-Force user, and under his master's work he was given the power to use the Force. Think being able to take all the weak and non-Force using slaves that no other master wanted and being able to give them the Force. His master could turn a weak, no good slave people into a very scary group of powerful Force users, completely changing the level of power within the Empire. And yes, this kind of crazy power would definitely upset the level of balance. And what's interesting is that Nastia is not the only person who had this idea. Roadkills also had something similar. Perhaps Lord Shallan was intrigued with the idea of having Javiik imbued with the Force. Javiik's master then began experimenting with imbuing non-Force sensitive creatures with the Force. He went into hiding to experiment, and most of his career he was unsuccessful until that one day he finally achieves his goal. Other Sith Lords of the Council heard of his blasphemy, and now they want him gone, out of fear that Javiik's master may create a new threat to the Empire. Whether that's the Council's fear that Javiik's master will come up with an empire of his own, full of Force sensitives, or the fact that this sort of heresy unnerves the Sith Council, that everyone could become Force sensitive, rendering the Sith to be not as dominant in the galaxy. And I really like both of those ideas, and I was like, oh yeah, that would be really dangerous. If you could suddenly make many people connected to the Force, that would be a huge threat to the Empire, that would be a huge threat to the power balance of individual Sith Lords. It would no longer carry the extreme prestige being a Sith carries. But I wasn't sure if that was something that happens. Can you imbue something with the Force? I mean, Obviously, we're making this up, so literally anything could happen. We could say Javiik finds a way to turn all the Sith into pink bunnies. We're roleplaying. We can bend the rules a bit if we want. But I kind of want to try and stay within roleplay allowability as much as possible. So Assassins Den really considered this idea, and they had to say, the problem is that the Force doesn't work that way. You're either born sensitive to the Force, or you're born not sensitive to the Force. And while a Darksider can be stripped of their connection to the Force by a sufficiently powerful and knowledgeable Lightsider, as we may have seen in certain games that we won't spoil, a connection cannot be established where there was none to begin with. So, we've already established that Javiik himself has a bit of a connection to the Force through his ancestors, and he had some innate powers that maybe his mom was picking up on even before he was ever made into a slave. And his master just really kicked them into gear, gave them a catalyst, maybe even made them stronger. We're not entirely sure. But Assassins Den is saying that there is no way that this idea that Javik's master could have given more people Force powers would be acceptable within the lore. Like I said, if you're writing your own story, go ahead and have fun. Like, if you're trying to write a story with others, you want to stay within the lore so that you guys kind of have a set rules you can follow. But if you're just making up your own backstory, have fun. So what's interesting is that there is so much information in the Legacy series of Star Wars. There's the movies, and they are the most canon thing in the world. Absolutely 100%. Anything that happens in the movies is a non-disputable fact. And then there's a couple other newer things like the Rebels series on TV and the few books that have come out more recently. But then there's a whole bunch of books, comics, games, codex books, trading card games, board games, a whole bunch of other things that are actually part of the same kind of category called legends, sorry, not legacy. And these legends are not canon. They're not considered true. Star Wars: The Old Republic is not really considered true in terms of the Star Wars lore. And there is so much. So for every rule that says something can't happen, there is always some sort of exception. So this is from Roadkill's replying to Assassin saying, are you familiar with the Reborn? The Reborn were artificially infused with the Force, so it has happened in the Star Wars universe, at least in the Legends lore. So I am not familiar with the Reborn, so anyone who wants to tinker more with this idea, that would be definitely something to research. And since I don't know enough about it, I don't think I will choose that idea as much as I think it's interesting. So this was a fun idea from Kenneth Kramer. Lord Shallan was found out to be sympathetic to the Jedi Order, and this information was found out by Lord Zash. Lord Zash has been sending acolytes after him. On one of his ventures into the Dark Temple, he found an artifact that ties his family line to a line of Jedis. And he tries to destroy it, but was unable to destroy this. I was driven mad by a Force ghost in the temple and attempts to run away. He leaves behind his lightsaber where Javiik will find it. You know, the special lightsaber we have. Meanwhile, Darth Sash is continuing to work on getting Javiik to her side to eventually cross blades with her former master. And that's a really fun one. I like that he tied in Lord Sash. And here is where I started getting more ideas that I wanted to use. This is from Joseph Henricher. Maybe the Sith was reading, in Thanaton's library perhaps, and discovered an ancient text from Voss that told of the ancient evil there and the really creepy beasts that live around the Dark Heart area. And decided to investigate further, thinking that Voss might hold the secret to more powerful beasts, forcing him into exile somewhere in the Nightmare Lands where survival was unlikely, however not impossible. And Tythos kind of had a neat kind of idea. They said, while watching the video I thought, what is the worst thing a Sith can do that they don't do already? And I thought, and I realized the worst thing a Sith can do is turn to the light to see what it can do for creating stronger Sith spawns. And they weren't the only one who thought about the light side. And not to mention, you guys keep mentioning that he is secretly a Jedi and is a traitor. But Ethan Bevan said, Lord Shallan had discovered that there was more to the Force than just light and dark. Other Sith questioned this, stating it was just black and white. But through his studies, he had discovered a sort of balance through his alchemy. If he was to infuse a creature with pure dark, they would go into an uncontrollable rage. And if he infused a creature with light from a holocron, it would become too docile. Once he had blended the two, he had a creature that he can control with unrelenting power of the Force. Other lords did not take a liking to this, claiming he was becoming soft and learning too much from the Jedi holocrons they acquired. But Lord Shallan dismissed all claims and continued his research until he was forced into hiding, as the other Sith Lords felt he would turn acolytes to the light side. And since you guys really seem to love the idea of Lord Shallan's master in some way being connected to the Jedi on the light side, I think this is an idea we're going to have to pursue. Let's say that Lord Shallan was indeed investigating Sith alchemy and Sith spawn, and was attempting to change more sentient beings using the Force, or at least beasts. We don't know if he's been playing with sentient ones yet. Let's hope not. That's a little creepy. And he found out that a better combination than just pure dark side energy being pushed into a beast would be to combine at least some light side into his work. Now, he obviously can't head to Tython. He is a dark Sith Lord doing Sith alchemy. He's not doing it for good reasons. But maybe he wants to go somewhere where the Force is a little more in balance and things aren't quite as black and white as Jedi and Sith. So what kind of planet would he head to? Maybe one that got mentioned earlier? Maybe he headed to Voss. Maybe he wants to talk to the Voss mystics. Or maybe he wants to head to the Dark Heart, the Dark Forest with his twisted creatures. All of those things would be great for him on Voss. So we do know that Javiik's master has headed to Voss to investigate further into his Sith alchemy. With that decided, and us going further into Lord Grathan's estate, on the next episode of The Wonder of Swtor, the playthrough, I'm going to leave you guys with a simple and fun question. What was your favorite quest that was connected to your character and their backstory and roleplay? Did you happen to play a Revanite character and the Revanite camp quests really interested you? Did you want to play a bounty hunter as a Mandalorian and you were really happy to see the Mandalorians on Dromund Kaas? Or were you playing a slippery smuggler and Nar Shaddaa? Well, pretty much all of Nar Shaddaa. Let me know in the comments below. And I'll see you guys on the next episode of Wonder Talk.